Hey, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman, and I hope you've been enjoying some of the other podcasts that we have out there on this show. Tons of great stuff, lots of really valuable tips, education, information, and tools that you can draw from when you're going out into the trenches with a Kickstarter, Indiegogo, equity crowdfunding campaign, or really any other type of fundraiser. You know, my goal here is to demystify and deconstruct this process for you. And I do that by bringing on real world entrepreneurs, creative types, individuals who are running a campaign right now. They're in the trenches and they're telling you what's working, what's not. They're sharing their authentic stories, how they came up with their idea, how they assembled a team, all these things that I think a lot of people wonder about. You know, you just kind of see like a massive campaign. You're like, how did they actually do that, right? That's the aim of this show, because it's always been a frustration for me. Like, I hate it when people, this is like a personal pet peeve of mine. I hate it when people just like are very surface level in conversation. In particular, when I'm trying to accomplish something, I'm trying to understand, let's just say like how an author wrote a book, or I'm trying to understand the marketing techniques behind this campaign, and the person just being very surface level. It always is super irritating to me, because I'm like, no man, like I want the deep stuff. Like I want to know what actually, you know, all the little mechanisms and all the little intermechanics that went into a campaign. So this kind of podcast emerged from my own frustration, but it also just is in general curiosity. You know, as someone who's in the field, I've been in this industry since 2012. I'm always want to keep my fingers on the pulse and find out what's working. You know, today's episode, we spoke with They Live, Assault on Cable 54. This is a cooperative adventure board game actually based on a cult movie. So this project is a six-figure campaign, over $160,000 raised, more than 2,000 backers. And this is kind of like a really interesting project, I think, because taking the intellectual property of someone else, making a deal, and then building a board game out of that, or building a comic book, that's kind of a really interesting business model. I think that because of the internet and the way things are, it's so much easier to do that nowadays. You'll hear the very direct story of how today's entrepreneur and creative type, how he actually did that, how he just reached out and was able to get the creative rights to produce a game centered around a really popular cult movie. When we hear about those things, like I always used to think Hollywood, and this is like an impenetrable veil where you can't ever speak to the people who created these amazing masterpieces, works of art, movies, film, music, etc. But nowadays with social media, with crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter, you can not only reach out to these individuals, these creators, but you can also harness the power of their fans into and funnel it into a real campaign like a crowdfunding campaign, or even just funneling it into the new project that you're working on. So I think we live in a really great time where there's so much democratization of information. And it's a lot, I think, lower barriers to entry for even just someone now who's sitting at home, who isn't a noteworthy celebrity or anything like that, but you have a really good structured idea and you have some skills, your ability to either do things like illustration or do things like marketing or on the project management side. Like a team is really what's behind a crowdfunding campaign. You can fit in to a team or you can build your own. And it's so inspirational to me to see people like this who are coming on crowdfunding platforms. So I think you're gonna like today's episode. Also, really quickly, if you are interested in my step-by-step plan for launching a successful Kickstarter campaign, go and check out this link, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link will take you on Audible to the Kickstarter launch formula, which is my step-by-step blueprint for running a killer crowdfunding campaign. That link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio, crowdcrux.com, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Without further ado, hope you enjoyed today's podcast episode.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Where are you based, man? Where are you hailing in from?
I'm from the UK. Our team's all over though. We're scattered all over the world. So me and the other co-creator and some of the other people who are involved in the UK. Our art team, which are awesome, are over in Brazil, and they're great. And then obviously we've got people who are involved in the production side of things over in China as well, who are friends of ours. It's not like we've just randomly gone to a factory. So it's all it's a really close knit team from everywhere.
Yeah,
So
definitely. When it comes to that, I mean, we're in the middle of like coronavirus right now. Has that been impacting you at all, just having such a distributed team?
yeah, it's interesting because you don't expect to have to deal with the political turmoil from several countries at once. You know, like in the UK, which is like, oh, we've got what's going on here, but then I've got to deal with the fallouts and the rules that might be in Brazil, and also the situation between Hong Kong and China and trying to move from country to country because like moving between Hong Kong and China is normally a really easy to do thing. You know,
Hmm.
it's like walking across a road. You go through a checkpoint and that's it. And now it's a 14-day quarantine with a turnaround time. I mean, ideally, I'd have liked to have more samples and stuff with me, but they're literally sat in an airport because nothing's flown out in about a month.
Despite all of that, it doesn't seem to have stopped you. You know, you hit your goal, looks like within the first 1 or 2 days. I mean, you were really
15 hours.
15
Yeah.
hours. Yeah,
Yeah.
excuse me. So you really soared past that and you've been doing really well. Can you tell us a little bit about the game and sort of what it's like, the play and such?
Yeah, so it's the buzzword is a narrative adventure game with hidden enemies and obviously the big hook being the working glasses from the movie. The thing that we really wanted to focus on was not just a game where you're just constantly rolling dice and things mean nothing. You know, there's a number of sort of adventure games out there where we wanted to have something where there was a story for the characters, so you could invest in them and perhaps want to play somebody 2, 3, 4 times because you want to see everything that person's story's got to offer. So
Hmm.
that was really important, as well as having the hook of the cool glasses that you put on and there's invisible enemies there. So when you're playing it, you're trying to find out about your character, you're acquiring items so you can do this big assault on a place called Cable 54. You see, in the movie, there are these like hidden interdimensional alien type creatures that are broadcasting a signal so everybody looks normal. And spoilers for the movie, but it's like 1989 it was released in, so you've probably got, that's
You
a
had
decent amount
time,
of
yeah.
time. Um, Go and see it if you haven't. But at the end of the movie, they destroy the signal, and everybody is sort of revealed, who are aliens. And we wanted to recreate that and have that feeling. But also, there's a lot of unease in the movie over who's the bad guy, who's not, and we also wanted to create that. So we added a hidden enemy element to the game, where literally their character tile can only be, sort of seen if it's an enemy or not if you use the glasses to
Hmm.
look at their character card, and outside of that, it's not visible. So it's something cool because you're wanting to invest in your character, but you're also trying to concentrate on everybody else and work out where the mistrust is and if they're trying to stop you actually achieving the goal. So there's a lot of plates spinning, and it's about managing that and enjoying the story to essentially have those cool water cooler moments where you can chat
Yeah.
about it afterwards.
It sounds really exciting. Was this your first Kickstarter campaign or have you guys done other ones?
No, this is our first. This is our first, and we've learned so much. The I mean, literally, the game itself was me and the other co-creator Matt. We're on sort of a weekend away together, like with like our two families, and we were having a drink one night, and we started talking about this movie, and wouldn't it be cool if there was a board game based on that? And then the next day, we got up and realized we wrote it. We'd
Wow.
literally drawn out on a piece of paper what the board would look like. So, like the
Hmm.
board that you see now is the actual thing that we scribbled down on a piece of paper whilst on a weekend away, and it sort of grew from there. And it's just been an incredible journey to get to this point where not only it's our first Kickstarter campaign and we seem to have ticked a lot of boxes with people, but also it's licensed and we've gone through all the loopholes with that, and just everything, bringing it all together was really important for us.
Had you done board games before or was this also your first board game?
Me and Matt play board games all the time. That's our whole thing of it, really. I mean, I'm a creative person. I've designed educational material and sort of board and card game things that people will use in a teaching setting to teach things. So
Hmm.
one example is in the UK, there's a thing called the CSCS card, like where you do your construction training. If you've done some of their test stuff, you've probably done stuff that I've created or worked on,
Hmm.
which is a completely different world. But it's amazing how many building blocks are very similar, to do with has the person learnt this? What is the outcome? And there's a lot of things that are very much tied to that. Matt is a Warhammer board veteran, Warhammer miniatures veteran, and plays board games like every day of his life. So it just combining those two things of the process of making something, and him who has just this infinite wealth of knowledge of how these things worked really well.
So you have this idea, and you guys are really psyched and like jazzed about it. You're able to get the IP. What kind of happens next then? Like, how long did you spend creating the gameplay and like all of the marketing assets, like with the look and feel, like all that kind of stuff?
Well, I'll be quite frank. The last year has been all the marketing and the look and the feel has been the last year of it. Maybe a little bit longer, actually. Now we're halfway through this year, almost. You lose track of time with quarantine, I guess. Yeah. So it's been about that time. Before we started this game, maybe like 2.5 years ago now. But at that time, as I say, it was an idea we had. And we had no expectation of acquiring the IP. So it wasn't like we just came up with this thing and went to the IP holder and went, great, we'll have that, thank you very much. We essentially built what I like to refer to as an alike game. You know, where you have some of these games where it's clearly meant to be based on the project, the IP, but it's not named the IP. You've seen them, and so we were going to create that. And when we were forming the company and getting set up, one of the people we work with went, well, why don't we just go and show them what we've got and try and get it? And me being me, I'm the glasses half empty guy in the group. I go, no, they're not going to listen to us. They're going to usher us out the door. And we went and we showed them, and they were like, yeah, we think this is great.
Wow.
Let's do this. And don't get me wrong, there was lots of hoops we had to jump through to nail things down. But at that point, we then managed to secure that IP, which meant rather than trying to write characters that were like characters and trying to come up with alternatives, we could just work with what was there. And being such fans of the property, it became a lot easier to put things together quicker because, you know, the amount of quotes, the amount of references, and the amount of equipment and things like that are in the movie that you can just instantly pull from.
Totally. And you can also break into the fan base a little bit of the movie too, right? Anyone who's interested or has seen that movie before and they're familiar with the story, that's just kind of an extension of that. So you're going to naturally have some marketing built in.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say the one thing that's been really key from us from very, very early on is, although we were making an alike game initially, which we then tied into this and you know, made it what it was meant to be originally, everything's been about making sure that it's as faithful to the movie as humanly possible. And I think fans are seeing that. We're seeing that in our comments. Oh, I noticed you referenced this person or done this, and that's really important to us because not only does it tap into that fan base, but that fan base recognize that we care about it. It isn't just going, oh, we'll stick whatever, you know, sticker on our existing game this is and hope people like it. It's very much living and breathing that universe. Yeah, I care because if I bought the game and it's on a movie that I like, and it doesn't feel like the movie I like, I feel ripped off. And I feel like that with, it doesn't matter if it's video games or board games or just any product at all. If you feel it's just a sticker slap, then it's something that's not engaging for me. So it was all about living and breathing that and making sure that the game's very much, you know, connected to the universe.
Well, when you decided you guys were going to actually go forward and form this company and really plow ahead, what were your friends and family and people you know, like, what did they think about that you're starting a whole new board game company, essentially?
I can speak for myself mainly at this point. Obviously, friends and other people connected, I can't speak on their behalf. I had a very well-paid teaching job, right? And I'm like, so I'm going to leave this and go and do this completely experimental thing where I'm going to make board games and I'm going to hope people fund it. And people like, you know, my parents and even, you know, sort of my in-laws and things like that were, are you sure this is a good idea? You know, this is a big step, you know. But we took that step, and I'm glad we are where we are. That's the thing. Everybody's got to start somewhere, and it doesn't matter. Even if this game's like 300% what it was meant to be at this point. Even if we'd only originally raised the goal that we'd got, obviously we'd only been on a tighter budget, but we'd have made it work because it was about costing it and making sure it would work even at that budget. So that was really important to us to make sure that everything was stable. We didn't want to be in a position where, like, for example, we were running up credit cards to make this game or something like that, because
it's always dicey.
Exactly. Then you've just got to put this money that you've earned on the crowdfunding straight into a bill that now doesn't exist. You know what I mean? And you've got no funds to actually make the product with. For us, it was about let's get to this point, and literally the funding that we've got is going into that game process.
So fast forward, and we're the day before you go live. You go live and you start getting backers for this thing. What did that feel like for you?
I can't begin to put that into perspective, to be honest, because there's always this it doesn't matter how good your product is, okay? It doesn't matter what reputation you've got. There's always this thing in the back of your head which says, what if people don't like it and just don't buy it, and I've completely wasted
2 years.
Time. Yeah. I've wasted like 2 years of my life. I've wasted everybody else's time. All the artists have drawn something that's never going to be used. What am I going to do? Right until you press that button. And it doesn't matter how much you've invested into it, what marketing you've got, how many people you've got already following you. It just doesn't matter. And so to press that button, and then literally in the first 2 minutes, the first 30 seconds, we saw it clock past like $2,000. In the first 30 seconds, I was like, oh my God. I can take my foot off the gas a little bit and stop panicking and stop having a heart attack about this thing, because people are invested enough to press the button that early on. And that for me was
phenomenal. Yeah,
it is. It's a great feeling, because it feels like, we are doing the right thing by people. People are engaged in the way that this looks, and people want to play this game. And it's that itself's fulfilling.
How did those people in those early backers discover the project? Were they browsing Kickstarter, or did you do like some kind of an announcement? How did they discover it?
Well, what we did is with our Facebook, we announced that before we had the game name even confirmed, because there's a process in confirming a name with a license holder, which sometimes people don't realize with IP. You can't just walk in and go, I'm going to call it this. It's not necessarily allowed. So, but we had got the license, everything was signed, and we went, well, you know what, we're going to have They Live the Game. We're going to put that on Facebook. We'll get that out there, and we'll just see ourselves how much traffic we can get through board game groups and forums and things like that. So not even a paid Facebook ad or anything like that. And we got, I think it was 25,000 people just viewed our initial image, which was literally half a man's face with They Live the Game. As a curiosity piece, and it was just through sharing through groups, completely organic, not a paid promotion at all. And at that point, people started to like and get involved, and we started to go, there's something here, because people were engaged at that point. Later on, we then went into the whole paid Facebook marketing side of things to make sure people got a visibility of adverts that went a little bit wider, because obviously if they were interested in the IP, we might not be catching them through board game groups. And so it was about getting it to those people as well. And yet again, the reception was really great from very early on.
As you go and you sort of notice that, and there's this big crowd of people that are waiting for this thing to come out, I mean, that's also a really big burden, because everyone has their own opinions, right? And you can't please everyone. How did you kind of balance delivering on something that's not going to break the bank, that you can actually fulfill your rewards with, versus having maybe some people that don't always get what they want and such?
That for me was a really important thing, because it was about, for starters, we had written off miniatures at point one. We could have gone down that road. I'd had the contacts in China to be able to go down the miniatures route, and then to greenlight all the likenesses in 3D and all this process. However, it was one of those things very early on. We decided we're not doing that. We're going to make sure we get a game that we can produce in a manageable way. Now, if we decide to do something larger and even bigger later, or something else, then that's fine. But we wanted something that was very manageable, so we could budget it. So the whole, one of the things, and I would totally recommend this to anybody who does this at all, is if you can, go direct to a factory, rather than a trading partner. And a lot of people don't normally understand what that is. But normally what happens when you have a project and you announce you've got a project, you'll get contacted by a load of people who are essentially a middleman between you and the factory. Okay? Middleman doesn't care what the quality of your product is. It's very rare that they will. right? The person who cares what the quality of your product is you. So if you have the direct contact with the factory and can physically either go there, or you have a direct person that you can talk to, it cuts out that cycle and makes it a lot easier. So when we did that, it enabled us to budget more effectively. It made us, enabled to be more confident about the quality of the product, and that the technology worked, because the technology was a whole other thing with with the invisible images and getting that right, so it worked. And yeah, so budgeting and controlling that was really important. You are always going to get people who push for things that you don't plan, and where we will accommodate where we can, but you have got to stick to your core vision at the end of the day, and sort of commit to that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to that factory, did you have a teammate that went there physically? Did you go there physically? How did you do that? Okay.
I went there. I'm very lucky enough to, outside of this board game thing, I've been very connected to the action figure community for a long period of time. I have a little YouTube channel, bits like that I've done as a pastime, but it meant that I'd got contacts already in China who were involved in production. So it was a matter of literally turning up and speaking to people, and had somebody who could fluently speak there with, who was already a friend who could speak to factories with me and go and have those conversations. So it made things a lot easier. Everybody's not going to have that. But what I would say is, where possible, that direct approach is very positive. Also for peace of mind. People say there was a comment that came up a while back about, how do you know the factories are, to a good standard and the people are treated well? Well, I went there. That was the easy way.
That's a great, that's a good answer too.
And don't get me wrong. I live in the UK. It's like a 12 to 14 hour flight, then all the commute. It wasn't a nice Sunday stroll, but it meant that going and speaking to people physically, I got to get a feel of what was happening and in that situation. It just made it a lot easier to know what we were getting out of it, and it was worth the flight, basically. It didn't cost a great deal to go over there, so it was worth it. If you can, direct contact wherever possible is wonderful.
As you're going out there and you're creating your first project, it's kind of overwhelming, I think, the amount of work there is to do, but it looks like you kind of dealt with it effectively by surrounding yourself with other people, right? Like a team of people that can help you do this. How did you do that? Were you hiring people on like Upwork? Did you have people you knew through connections? How did you assemble a team around this project to really make it successful?
What I would say is, the first thing is, we all have friends and contacts and people that have these hidden talents that you don't expect. Okay, I never expected to be talking to you now, having made a board game that we came up with as a casual idea. But for example, there was very, very sort of halfway through the process, we found out that there may be an issue with international music licensing. Right? Music licensing is really simple. You license it, and that's it. Great, no problem. But if you're playing it to multiple countries, you need a different license for each country, and there's all sorts of rules around that. So I was like, oh God, what are we going to do? We're going to have to get this and this and this. It's going to cause all these problems. And then it hit me. I went, oh, I've got my friend Marco. He's a really good composer. I'll contact him. And Marco, I literally had to have a verbal argument with him to get him to allow me to pay him. He was like, no, do this for free. I'm like, no, I want you to be paid for it. I want you to be funded for it. And his music's wonderful. I do think you'll be amazed at the amount of contacts you have in your social circles who have incredible talents that are there. And I mean, our Brazilian team, literally the sort of character artist Hugo was a friend of mine, and we're connected through the action figure thing that we were talking about earlier. And his friend Max, who did all the sort of UI and the physical sort of card stuff and everything like that, he was Hugo's friend. So through that chain, I've not only met somebody else, but I've also found a really effective team that can work together because they're friends and they already get on. And that's the thing. It makes it far more easy, at least from my perspective. If you're working with people that you know and that you trust, if something goes wrong, they'll help you fix it because they're committed as you to help, and vice versa. If they've got something going on, they know I'm there to support them.
Yeah, they believe in the project more than just this is another gig, like they're a hired gun or something like that.
Exactly. I mean, like right at the beginning, we did have a look around at different artists and get different quotes. And, this is no disrespect to anybody, but there was just people that gelled and there was people that didn't. And the people that we got on really well with, things just started to instantly spark and you could see the excitement for everything. And that's history, really. We're just in that flow where everybody wanted to get it right and comes up with ideas. I mean, I'll be honest, our artist fixed a problem that we had very early on with part of the glasses technology that we were doing. He saw something that he went, oh, well, I think this works that way. And then when we liaised with the factory and we fixed that problem, and he was completely out of that. That was not his field, but because he was committed to it, we fixed that problem a year ahead of time.
That's a really good example of how people can also just show you where your blind spots are,
Completely. Sometimes
you just you're so engrossed in a project that you're not able to see things clearly, and just having another set of eyes on it makes it a lot easier. Was there anything else that kind of surprised you throughout this project? So having teammates who have skills maybe that you didn't realize, was there any other things that surprised you throughout the campaign?
Throughout the campaign, I'd say there's two things that really jump out to me. The first one is how awesome the licensor have been. Because I expected one of two things. I expected either really heavy-handed and wanted to micromanage everything, or I expected the flip side of that, which would be they sign a check and don't care. Yeah, I didn't expect them to be really helpful and engaging and be like, no, we're going to tweet. We're a movie studio, but it's okay. We're going to tweet your trailer out on our Twitter feed. We're going to put that out on our Instagram. I didn't expect that level of commitment from a studio. A motion picture studio. I didn't expect that.
They don't have to do it, yeah.
No, they don't. Literally, they can sign that check and don't care. You know what I mean? That's it. As long as that check's gone and the contract's in, it doesn't matter. But the fact that they were as committed as we were to making this something a success was really important. And that shocked me as well. I think people are generally good and they want each other to succeed. I don't think people get out of bed in the morning to make other people feel bad. And I think if you can work in that way collaboratively with people, we all get the best out of everything. I think that's a really important thing. And that was something that surprised me. The second thing that really surprised me is how amazing some of the comments have been on the Kickstarter, how positive and engaged people have been. And for me, one of the greatest things on there was just day one seeing hundreds of quotes from the movie posted. Just ongoing, just quotes and quotes and quotes by the same 2 or 3 people, which some people would perhaps think is spam, but for me it was just to look at that and go, wow, they're as into this as I am. The world's bigger than just the small group of people that's been working on it. So
it's really exciting because they really want this to exist and they want to be able to play it, and it just totally shows. I mean, I'm looking through the comments here. You have over 400 comments, a lot of really encouraging ones, people asking questions, you being very responsive with these. I just think that shows an incredible level of dedication from your community there.
Yeah, the community is absolutely awesome. And I will say that I'd probably say a good 75% of those comment replies are me directly. It means I don't get a lot of sleep. I try, when I miss somebody's comment for 2 hours, it's because I've gone to sleep.
It's such a good learning exercise, though, because when you come out with this product, I mean, imagine you're going to come out with other games in the future, right? So it's such a good learning exercise.
Completely. And there's things that we've got wrong. There's unexpected things that happen, like the virus and everything like that. And the thing that got me is things with samples. If I'd had the hindsight thought about it to in January put something on a boat rather than wait for the plane, I'd have probably had it in hand, because it's 30 days on a boat, 30 days shipping and handling. So 60 days through to March, I'd have probably got something.
Yeah, the planes are all backed up. All those medical supplies and everything, right?
Yeah, and to be fair, that's more important than our board game. As much as I love it, and as much, Everybody being well and having what they need. That's the priority.
Totally. So when it comes to this project, you've kind of discovered, almost like tapped into this source of, now you realize you can actually not only launch a game that people are going to like it, but you can also use crowdfunding. Do you think you're going to do that with more projects? Are you going to come out with more games in the future?
Yeah, there is plans for other games. I have a little black book of games of ideas. I watch movies and go, wouldn't that be great if? And obviously, because of what we've done, we have contacts with movie studios as well now. So that's all doable. Crowdfunding is definitely a road we'll go down again, particularly with Kickstarter. We've enjoyed the experience. The community has been positive. I will say the flip side of that is, though, this is not an infinite money pit. It's about people getting the quality game at the end of it, and then us building on that fan base. It's not about us just shoveling as much as we can on Kickstarter and getting some checks and then worrying about it later.
Yeah, so that's also where your brand comes into play, right? Because if people like the first game, they're going to be willing to support another project that you do, whatever that is, even if it's in a different vertical. If they see the quality, they play it, they enjoy it. That's where the relationship comes in.
Oh, exactly, and I think and that transcends everything. Not even just the board game side of things. As I say, I dabble in YouTube. Okay, so I've got I'm not huge. I've got about 9,000 subscribers.
That's pretty good.
It's not bad for a guy who talks about dolls essentially or action figures. But what the most heartwarming thing for me was people who enjoyed that content. I've seen backing the Kickstarter. I've had comments from people who've said, I've bought your game because I like what you do. And so, yeah, that brand even transcends to other things and other avenues you've got. If you run a little forum somewhere, or you run a Facebook page and group, or whatever it is that you do, chances are those people who like what you do will support you in other creative aspirations you've got in your life. So I think that even transcends just the buying another project from the same company. So
if you're really enthusiastic about something, I mean, you're probably going to be talking about it regardless. So why not do a YouTube channel or a podcast or a blog or something, right? Which you could maybe use in the future, almost as like a marketing asset.
Completely.
But also just fun, right?
And that the key thing with all of this, even the board game, do it because you love it. Don't do it because you're aiming to make $1 million. Don't get me wrong. I would be overwhelmed if we do a board game in the future that makes $1 million. Okay, I'll be absolutely I'll be there thanking everybody. Exactly,
it's possible. I mean,
now with this other amount.
There are games now I see live on Kickstarter. One was like 8 million. It's crazy. Just the insane level of success on the platform now.
That's one of the things that I'm really proud of. Is I'm going to name drop them anyway because their game looks great. It's Frosthaven. We launched on the same day as Frosthaven and funded on the same day. So it was one of those things where I was absolutely petrified of, oh my god, we're going against this behemoth, of a project. And then we launched and we funded because it's a different fan base, and that's it. There's room. Chances are, if you're passionate about it, there's room for your niche of people on there.
100%. Well, I'm going to give you the last word here. Where can people go and find out more about your project or about future ones that you have in the works?
Okay, well, you can go to iconicstudios.com. That's iconic with a Q rather than a C at the end. Or alternatively, if you do follow us on the Kickstarter, even if you don't buy the game this time and this is not your bag, if you follow, put in the remind me and the follow, you may be able to follow the track of other projects that we have coming up, and get notified of them. In addition, we also have Facebook and Twitter and everything else for you to be able to find, which is probably best to find them through the iconicstudios.com website.
Okay, and that's They Live Assault on Cable 54, if you guys want to check it out. Hey man, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all these great tips. Really appreciate it, Andrew. And I think this is the beginning of just a whole new journey for you. And I think it's really inspiring, just everything you've been doing and the hard work and the dedication. And I think most importantly, the fact that you're really honest about the process. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything.
Oh, no, thank you very much for having me. And it's all about honesty. At the end of the day, you're dealing with other people's money and you've got to be honest if you're dealing with that. Otherwise, you're going to get a reputation. It's as
Well
simple as
said.
that.
Well said. Good luck with your remaining 5 days.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador, and I hope you enjoyed today's podcast episode, that you learned something when it comes to not only more of a creative style business, but also how to partner with people and kind of make use of IP, intellectual property. That's something it's like a type of business that's not really discussed very much. You know, it's very, I think, esoteric in nature. It's kind of like when I think of Hollywood, or I think of these really big creators or people who make movies and films, it's like this impenetrable veil where like it's hard to get into that social circle. But we learned today how you can actually do that. You can just reach out to people. If you have a great idea, there's nothing stopping you nowadays from seeing it exist in reality and connecting with a huge fan base of people who support that IP, that intellectual property, and to buy into your idea, to support your campaign, to become customers of your business. It can really ignite an entirely new brand, and it's a very powerful way, I think, to also just stand out from a marketing perspective. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast episode. If you liked episodes like this in the past as well on this show, I try to bring on a lot of different variety of guests. Would love a rating and review on iTunes. That would mean the world to me, man. Also, if you want my one-on-one consultation to speak with me in depth, intensively for an hour on your project, and to get through the entire strategy, to figure out what's working, what's not, and also to discuss maybe bringing me on the team, or I can introduce you to other people in this industry that I know, quality vendors, etc. You can book a one-on-one coaching call with me. That link is crowdcrux.com/coaching, crowdcrux.com/coaching, crowdcrux.com/coaching. But if nothing else, go and listen to some of those other episodes I got out there, because there's a lot of good stuff. Thank you for listening to this one, and I'll see you next time.